Recording in progress. Next up. Bear with. Right, we're back. So, let's present full screen, eh? Once I've shared it with you, obviously. Share screen. All right, looking good. Looking good. Okay, so this week's video is what you need to understand about your body weight. Really, really important topic. One of the most important topics that I can deliver, in my opinion. And I'll explain why as we go through. So, certainly for as long as I can remember, the body weight scales have dominated health, fitness, and body image. So, for such a long time, it's an age-old problem. So many people's identity has been wrapped up in what the scales say. They step on the scales, they're either pleased, they're either really not pleased, and often that can change and fluctuate and chop and change very, very regularly, which can be really, really confusing. It's not helped by the media. Okay, so the media have conditioned the public over the years to think that certain dress sizes are the gold standard. If you look at Kate Moss and a little pal back in the 90s, from what I remember, kind of the newspapers back then would all be about kind of being skinny for women. The size 6 is the one, and size 10 is too big, and or size 10 is curvaceous is one that I remember. So we've kind of been conditioned, not just from the media, but I think it's been kind of passed down generationally as well, that what we weigh is important. It's not helped by again, archaic diet methods. I'm thinking again from back in the 90s and the noughties in terms of everything being associated around scale weight. And even in the modern day, you still see the narrative around dropping pounds and ounces, kilograms, everything being about the number on the scale as opposed to what we really should be focusing on when we want to kind of maybe reduce our body composition. It's about body fat. It's body fat that we want rid of. It's body fat that makes us look a bit bigger, feel a little bit bigger and unhealthy. It's body fat that we want rid of, right? But the narrative is still around the number on the scales, which can be really, really confusing for people when it doesn't necessarily go to plan. BMI also hasn't helped over the years. And the classic one with BMI when it come around was the fact that someone like Jonny Wilkinson, a really famous rugby player at the time, would be classed as obese because of what he weighed for his height, but the guy was absolutely stacked full of muscle. So would you look at him and say that he was obese? Of course you wouldn't. But according to BMI, he was. And so many people will fall into those categories. Overweight. I remember my wife going for her first kind of pregnancy thing and did a BMI and she was classed as overweight. And it was like, she's not overweight. It's just an unhelpful and unwelcome thing, really. It's a negative, right? It's someone doctor turning around saying you're overweight when you're clearly not. Yeah, it's really unwelcome, and it creates this thing where people are really, really worried about the scale weight to the point where they have such a bad relationship with it. They don't know where to turn, and they can never get the results that they want. So it's a problem. But I want to give you some context today around it. So it's little wonder that people struggle to understand that not all weight loss or weight gain is fat loss or fat gain, right? So when, like I said before, it's body fat that we want to lose. It's body fat that we put on when we kind of let our focus slip over time, right? So it's body fat, not body weight. Body weight is made up of other things as well. So, but people really struggle to separate the two. So I'm hoping to be able to help you do that today. So usually if a client comes to me and they've got a poor relationship with the scales, we wouldn't work with them, to be honest. If it was a kind of a longer term lifestyle client, um, we would not tend to work with them if we don't have to. However, at the same time, I think it's important for me to, as a coach, to educate people, shape their understanding better, so that they have a better view and can hopefully remove that negativity over the time, so they don't have that negative connotation with the scales, because they understand what makes up their body weight, and they understand that the focus is on body fat, and we're training, the focus is on building strength and resilience, and overall building our happiness and quality of life. um, Once they kind of get that understanding, then potentially they won't have a negative relationship with skills anymore. Not that they need to use them, but what we want to do is kind of repair those feelings and those thoughts in the head. The first thing to be aware of, and this is where people will go wrong when they kind of try and look after themselves from a diet perspective. Okay, they think, right, I'm not going to get a coach, I'm not going to join a group or anything like that. I'm just going to go it all alone, and I'm going to weigh myself, and we'll see how we get on. To put all their eggs in one basket, okay, which is exactly what I'm saying not to do here. So if all you do to measure your progress is step on the scales, you're going to place far too much importance on it, okay? And then when the numbers do go up and down, it's going to create this confusing emotional roller coaster, and it's going to eventually leave a negative mark, okay? You can't just have one way to measure your progress. Sure, there's no reason why the scales won't go down week by week, or day by day, or whatever. There's going to be times where it's going to fluctuate, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. You could be trying your hardest in your view, and the numbers aren't moving, or they're going the other way, and you just won't necessarily understand the context behind why that is. But it's too late for you. It's already gone wrong in your mind. You're already self-sabotaging. You're already throwing your progress out the window. You're already back to square one in your head. Okay. Whereas if you had other methods of measuring your progress, a few different ways in your arsenal, then it's not going to matter when the scales go up or down, because you're going to have these other ways that you've used to measure your progress. Measurements is for one. Tape measure, really simple, something you can do yourself, something that you can do with the help of somebody else in your household or a friend. Is taking regular measurements. This is a better indicator of body fat actually leaving your body. Okay, if you can kind of track your waist, your hips, different areas that you want to focus on from a fat loss perspective. If you're as well as taking your weight, you're taking some measurements, that's great. The other one's photos, a really obvious one. You've seen them befores and after. Regularly taking photos so you can pick out any composition changes, or someone can do that for you, because sometimes it's easier when another set of eyes is on it. Concentrating on performance goals is a big one. I try and work with clients to make them concentrate on and start to think of more about what their body can do as opposed to how it looks. All right, and giving them confidence through that way, and showing them how quality of life and happiness is this can be given so much from what you can accomplish and what you can achieve in the gym or in sport. Okay, but sometimes we're not working in that environment. We're just working in a kind of fat loss centric thing, and that's fine. How are you feeling? All right, what's your energy levels like? How's your responsiveness to your dieting? Are you feeling more sprightly in yourself day by day? Okay, are you feeling nice and feeling a bit trim, or you're feeling a bit heavy? These feelings are really important. Okay, it's how you operate daily. How do you clothes fit is another one. There's so many times people will send me a message saying, "Oh, I've had a win today. The jeans I haven't worn for a while, I've put them on and they don't feel snug." That's a really good indicator that you've made progress. You've dropped body fat. You've shrunk down in size. That's a much better indication of progress than what the scales may or may not say. Okay, so have yourself a number of options for you to measure your progress. Bit of a case study just to take you back in time. This is my client, Jen. This is from a couple of years ago now, this particular set of photos. But I remember putting a post on Facebook after working with, this was after an initial kind of 12, 13 weeks. And I put the title was Only Lost £6. And the reason I put that on is Jen was somebody at the time who had a really poor relationship with the scales. If I'd have told her before she started working with me that, yeah, during this process, you're going to lose £6, she wouldn't have been buzzing. All right. She's been in that position many times before where she's felt like she's dropped that amount of weight, sometimes more, and then obviously it's kind of gone back on quite shortly after. So I doubt she would have actually signed up to that if I'd have told her that was the way. But in the reality, if you're looking at the pictures, especially if you're looking at this on a bigger screen, you can see just how good the results actually are in just the 12 weeks. So overall, she lost 20 centimeters of body fat, which we ascertained through measuring. But you can kind of see that will be the case if you look at the photos in terms of how she's kind of toned up. Yes, she was training and getting stronger again, which you can kind of see, but it's more the fact that the body fat that she very obviously dropped. She got stronger, she got fitter, she got more confident. The big thing for her was she was starting to wear size 10 clothing again for the first time in 15 years, right? Since kind of being a mid-teen. And Jen being able to kind of see these results with her own eyes consolidated everything that I had taught her about body weight, and she was a lot more happy to kind of leave the scales alone. All right, and we'd kind of step on it every now and again. Obviously we had to kind of get the £6 title, but the main thing was showing her that there's other ways to measure progress. And then when it come down to sharing those results, we were actually able to see just how well she'd done, but she'd only lost £6, which to some people would be like, that's a nightmare. I look at myself and I need to lose a couple of stone, whereas it's body fat that we need to drop. And when you're training and stuff, you're gonna keep weight on, okay? But you could drop a hell of a lot of body fat, 20 centimeters in this case. So some real context behind what I'm saying. Why do the scales change so much? Just to give you an insight into why the scales can go up and down. Why one week you could be losing a few pounds here and there, a couple of kilos, and the next week you might stagnate. You might put some back on, and you think, what's gone on there? I'm not doing a great deal different to what I was doing before. If we were to summarize it in one word, it would be water. All right, 60% of body weight in men and 50 to 55% of body weight in women is water. Okay, we are water. It's what we're made up of. In kind of healthy individuals, I kind of class this as people without kind of any underlying conditions or any kind of disabilities that they're battling against. But in healthy individuals, weight can fluctuate up to 5% daily. That's across the day. All right, so just to give it context, someone at 75 kg could also weigh in up to 78 at some point during the same day. All right, this obviously, as if you may think about this one, does have a lot to do with hydration levels for one. If you are someone that's taking on water through the day, that's obviously going to add more water into you, which can reflect on the scales. Conversely, if you're particularly dehydrated, you can obviously be lighter as well. But there's a number of other factors, some daily, some not, that influence fluctuations. So let's take a look at them in summary. Sodium is one, a big one. All right, this is purely dependent on what you eat. You don't eat the same food all the time. Sometimes, without you necessarily knowing, you're eating a meal that's high in salt. What this does, it retains water for longer. Okay, so you could have a really good meal. It could be within your kind of calorie target, contain loads of like nutrients and stuff, but something you've eaten in there is high in salt, and therefore you've gained on the scales, all right, or you've not lost as quickly as you thought you would. All right, it's because sodium will help water retention. If you think of having a classic, let's go to the kind of not the extreme example, but to a classic example of where this is the case. If you have a takeaway or something like that, some fast food, they tend to be high in sodium. All right, which is when you jump on the scales and you think, oh, I should never have done that. Look, I put weight on. This is why. Okay, what you've not done is gained body fat, but you have gained weight because you've eaten a meal that's a little bit higher in sodium. Once you kind of get back to your kind of normal eating habits, less salty meals and stuff, then you will find that you kind of go back to where you were, in terms of the scales. Training is another factor. All right, this is a shorter term effect, but if you're someone that trains regularly across a week, yes, if you're doing weight training in particular, muscles are going to fill with water, but you're going to get that inflammation, right? So when we are training, that's what it is. Our muscles get kind of torn and get caused inflammation. They pump up. We might do like a long long run or cardio conditioning session, and we could be feeling a bit achy and stuff the next day. We're carrying inflammation, which is made up of water as well. So again, training regular makes weight stick around, if you like. I'm trying to think of the right term to say, but it just means that we're not going to like just because we're training doesn't mean that we're going to be dropping weight. Your cycle is another one, your menstrual cycle. So if you think of like your two main phases of your cycle across a month, there's been observed average differences of half a kilo between the two phases. Okay, so this is what I mean. Like, you'll kind of probably know in yourself, watching this, if you have a regular cycle, you'll probably understand kind of where in the month you tend to be a little bit higher on the scales if you do weigh yourself, and if you have noticed that, that's just a natural, normal thing. Carbohydrates, if we go back to food, for every gram of carbs that we store, we retain 2.5 to 4 grams of water in our body. All right, we need carbs, they're essential. They help give us direct energy, they fuel us, they help fuel our training. We can't really avoid carbs, we should never avoid carbs, but they're good. And this is where the kind of archaic thing of, well, if you get rid of carbs, you'll drop weight. Yeah, because you'll kind of lose that kind of water retention. All right. So when people do carb-free diets and stuff, and then they start saying, oh, well, when I went carb-free, it worked. Yeah, it did on the scales, because you haven't got that water, that direct water retention. Doesn't mean you've made any progress and actually dropped any body fat, but there you go. Keep pushing that narrative if you want. We need carbs in our body. They're absolutely essential for us to function. So, but you've got to understand that it's going to play a part in what the scales say. All right, which again just hones in on the fact that we shouldn't necessarily be focusing on the scales, okay, in comparison to other metrics. So what this tells us is your body weight, essentially, if you're not getting the message by now, it's constantly fluctuating. If you step on the scales 5 times a day, there's every chance you're going to get 5 completely different readings. All right, between drinking water, between training, between eating foods, depending on what you've eaten. You're going to weigh differently all the time. So why get hung up on it? This shows that the scales cannot define you. You have to have other ways to measure your progress. All right, but this doesn't mean that the scales are completely useless. If we use it as one of 3 or 4, maybe 5 ways of measuring your progress, it still provides us with data that we can use alongside these other metrics, okay? Don't write it off. But what I'm saying is, the whole message is, don't place so much importance on it, because this is why it changes all the time. It's not an indicator of progress. It's not an indicator of body. It doesn't measure body fat. It'll measure body weight, but you're 55 to 60% made of water anyway. All right. So how can we go about tracking it when it does change so much? Because like I say, it's still useful to use. So remember that fluctuations are reality. You're never going to get 100% accuracy when you're tracking your weight. Like I said before, we don't really use it on longer term lifestyle or performance focused clients. However, any newer clients we do for education will go through this exact education purpose. Anyone doing a shorter term fat loss focus, I always recommend weighing daily rather than weekly. If you weigh yourself once a week, yes, as much as you can replicate the conditions that you've weighed yourself in, all sorts has gone on in that week. You might have had a few training sessions, you might have had a social event, and then the following week you might have had a completely different week, and therefore you're going to get different readings anyway. So we try and focus on weighing daily, all right, and replicating your weigh times as best as possible. The best time for me, first thing in the morning, go to the toilet, give it a few minutes, step on the scales before you've eaten anything, before you've drunk anything, before you've done anything, get that reading, and then you can kind of plot your progress over time. All right. That way, the conditions are the same, like I say. From then, if you're taking a reading daily, you can either take a 7-day average at the end of the week, or you can take the lowest number from that 7-day run, as this is likely to be the most realistic and least affected by everything you've eaten and drunk and stuff. So how this looks in reality. So if you look at the sharp changes on the graph on the left here, right? So these are daily, so October 23, 24, 25, 26. So across those 4 days, look at the sharp increases. We've gone from 81.48 to 81.7, back down to 81.4, back up to 81.6. 4 different readings, go up and down like a zigzag. If you were just doing that every day, you'd be like, your head would be battered and you'd be like, I'm not making progress. But zoom out, that's a zooming out motion. You can see our weekly focus now coming into context, the same you would do if you were doing monthly, but this is a short-term fat loss phase that we're looking at here. But look where we've actually gone from 84 down to 81. 3 kgs lost overall. So yes, we are not placing massive importance on body weight, but just goes to show that you can use it in the right way in order to kind of zoom out and use it as one of maybe 3 or 4 different ways of measuring your progress. So just to finalize, stepping on and off the scales at random times without any purpose, just stepping on, saying what away, it's just going to drive those feelings of overwhelm and disappointment. Okay. However, for a purposeful training or health program, like I said before, including it as one of your methods of measuring progress is really useful. Okay, it's just another way of measuring progress. All right. If you're someone that's just thinking about long-term health, lifestyle focused, training on the regular, getting steps in, eating good quality food, I wouldn't recommend using them. All right. Use it for more knowledge-based in the beginning. If you start working on a program, particularly if you're working with me, we would use it in the beginning educationally. And any kind of short-term fat loss phase we would use, but we use it daily, we use it diligently so that we can get all the data and then we can zoom out. Okay. If you have a poor relationship or history with the scales, it's good to avoid. All right. Because why would we want to bring up those negative feelings and thoughts? But arguably, it's probably better to be educated like this so that you can have clarity and potentially make peace with those thoughts and feelings and negative relationships that you once had. Okay. All right, absorb it, take it in. If you have any questions around the content of this and anything that's kind of sprung up, then please drop me a message, give me a shout, and I can discuss it further with anyone at any point. But I hope you kind of get the understanding of what I'm saying is you cannot pin or place so much importance on the scales when they do what they do, and when you're much more important than that. When it comes to measuring progress, you have to have the other ways of doing it, the ways that are actually more directly indicative of body fat and dropping body fat, which is what we want. We don't want to lose weight, we want to drop body fat. All right, but at the same time, we also want to get stronger, we also want to get fitter, we also want to get more confident. All of this has an impact on the scales. What it doesn't do is have an impact on your ability to drop body fat or to get stronger. Okay, so hopefully this will help. Just going to stop sharing, stop recording.